In this video, I'm gonna show you my top 5 closes you can use to start closing more deals. And we're gonna walk through each of these closes step by step so you know exactly what to do, what to say, and how to say these closes so that you can start converting your prospects into paying customers. What's going on, everybody? Patrick Dang here. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, the first close that we have for you is going to be called the scarcity close. And this is essentially when you are using any type of scarcity, whether it's to get someone to buy right now or a certain timeline, or maybe there's a limited quantity of the thing you are selling, whether it's a product or a service. You can also use scarcity in the form of discounts, meaning that you would want someone to make a decision by the end of the call or by the end of the week. And if they're able to do that, they might secure a special discount, whether it's 10, 20, 30%, whatever works for your specific sale. And how you apply the scarcity close, it really depends on if you're selling something transactional or strategic. So if it's transactional, most likely you can close relatively quick, whether it's like literally on one call or maybe within a week. But if you are selling something more strategic and it takes a lot of time before someone buys, it might be months or many months before you close a deal. So I'm gonna give you an example of selling something more transactional, like a vacuum cleaner, a refrigerator, or something like that. And closing someone, on that call or in that moment, okay? So I can say something like this towards the end of the call. I'll say, typically what we do is we would charge $5,000 for XYZ. But because I feel you're really good for this and I think it's a really great opportunity for you and I to work together, we can actually bring the price down to $4,000, giving you a 20% discount if you're able to make the decision on this call right now. So what's gonna happen is that the prospect is gonna feel incentivized because there's that scarcity to wanna close, right? They're gonna want that 20% discount, save $1,000, and if they already want the thing anyways, and you already answered all their objections, there's no reason for why they wouldn't buy, a lot of times they'll go ahead and just move forward because they would rather just save the time and make a decision and save $1,000. Now, if you're selling something more strategic, you can't necessarily close someone on one call because buyers are a little bit more sophisticated and they're not trying to make a decision right then, right there. So you can say something like this, typically we're gonna charge $20,000 for this software. However, because I really think we're a good fit to work with each other and I really do believe we can bring you a lot of value, we can actually reduce the price to $16,000 if you're able to make the decision by the end of the week, or make the decision by the end of the month, right? Depending what timeline you want to play with. So if you kind of do that, you give someone a discount, right? Steep discount, it's like $4,000, which is 20%. And they're able to save if they close by, let's say, the end of the week. And if that works for them, they want to save the money, they want to do it by the end of the week, they don't have to make the decision right there, right then it's going to work for both sides. Now, the key to this is whatever your pricing is, when it comes to B2B sales, what you can do is you can pick a price like an anchor price. So if you know that you're going to sell something for $10,000, but you're really happy with getting $7,000 and you have negotiation room for $3,000, right? So you would basically say, normally you would charge $10,000, and then if they're able to sign by a certain day, basically they give you something, you give them something back, which is that discount. And you might give them 10% discount, 20% discount, depending on what you feel is right in that situation. And so you can go all the way to, let's say, 30% discount, and then that's your limit. And so you're gonna have a range in between there. Now, this works really well because a lot of times in B2B sales, people will always ask for discount. So you're prepared ahead of time. You can give them that discount because you anchor them a little bit higher than what you are willing to accept. So now that we covered the scarcity close, we're gonna move to the next one, which is the question close. And the question close, really all you're doing is you're asking a question to get the prospect to buy, right? And it's actually super simple to execute, right? So towards the end of the meeting, once you go to the presentation, handle objections, it's the very end, it's time for the prospect to make a decision. So what you do is you're gonna say, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? The prospect's gonna say, nope, I've seen everything that I need to see and I understand that this is what I want and I wanna move forward. Then you would just say like, okay, so what do you wanna do now? And they will say, okay, well, how do I work with you exactly? And then you kind of go through that process and then you're ready to sign a deal. So essentially, by just asking the question, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward, right? It doesn't have to be those exact words, it could be a variation of that. People are just gonna be like, nope, that's it. So what do we need to do to move forward, right? And that's pretty much the question close. You ask a question and the prospect closes themselves. Now, if the prospect does have questions, you just answer them. And then once you answer those objections or any questions, and now they understand like, okay, this is a good fit, then you just say it again. So, now that we covered XYZ, is there anything else you need to see? And they will say no, and then you kind of move on with the deal and then you go for the close. Now we're gonna move to the next close, and that's gonna be called the give and take close. So this one's a little bit more advanced. It does require some negotiation techniques embedded inside this close, but I really think it's gonna give you a lot of value, because a lot of times in B2B sales, people will always negotiate as they start to close. So from the high level perspective, what's gonna happen is you're gonna go for the close, you're gonna give them a price, and then the prospect is going to negotiate. So they're either gonna, let's say, negotiate on price. A lot of times it's just price. They just want a discount. If they can't get price, they're gonna ask for extra services or extra features or bonuses while paying the same price, right? So instead of lowering the price, they're gonna ask for more stuff on your end. And so those are two of the most common things people ask for, and it could be more things, but let's just stick with two to make it simple. And the strategy here is that as people ask for more things, right? As your prospects say, can I get a discount? Can I get extra hours of consulting service? Can you do this for me? Every time somebody asks for something, you have to understand that you shouldn't be giving things away for free. So if they are gonna want extra consulting service, or if they're gonna want a discount, you gotta pay a price, right? So if they want consulting services, they gotta pay extra. But maybe you can charge a discount for those consulting services, but charge the full price for the core product that they're buying. Or if they want a discount, well, what do they give in return? Why should they get a discount? Are they going to pay everything up front? Are they going to sign the deal more quickly? What are they giving to get something, right? And so everything is going to be a trade in the close. It's kind of like negotiating. So the key insight here is you want to first understand typically what your prospects will typically ask at the end when it's time to close, right? So if you know that 9 out of 10 times people are going to ask for a 10 to 20% discount, you need to prepare for that, right? But if you know that people are going to ask for, let's say, extra consulting services, you need to prepare for that as well. So once you know what's coming at you, you are ready with a counter so that you can give them what they want while asking for something in return. So like the previous example I had earlier, if let's say somebody asks you for a 20% discount, you could say something like, okay, we can get that 20% discount for you, right? I can talk to my manager, I can talk to the CEO, and we can try to figure it out. But to do that, I'm gonna need something in return, because I can't just go to them with a free discount. It doesn't make any sense for me, right? So what we can do is, if you're able to sign the deal by this specific date, I can secure you that discount. But if we're not able to sign by that date, we're gonna go back to the regular price. Is that okay with you? And they're gonna say, okay, sure, that's fine. So in that example, they want a discount, they gotta sign by a certain date, it saves everybody time, and the company makes money, okay? Now, what if the prospect says, okay, the price looks good, this and that, but I want extra hours of consulting services from you and your team about this and this. Okay, well, if they're gonna want those hours, they're not free. Like, you cannot just give someone free work just to close a deal, right? Well, you could, but you don't necessarily want to. So what you would do is you could say, okay, well, I can definitely talk to my team about, adding those extra consulting hours. But, when I go to my team, what's gonna happen is that they're gonna question, why are we giving free consulting hours, right? It doesn't quite really make sense. Why would we work for free? Who's gonna pay our salaries? So if you're gonna want those consulting hours, I can try to get it for you. However, I may not be able to get it for free, but I can get it for you at a discounted price. Is that something you're interested in? So now what's happening is the prospect wants free consulting hours. You say, it doesn't really make sense, right? Logically, it doesn't. But as someone that is a partner with them, you can help them out and say, okay, look, we can't get it for free, but maybe we can do 40% off or whatever it is, right? And so if you understand the back end of your business pretty well, and that, let's say you give a 40% discount, but actually it's quite profitable even just to do that because it's an add-on service, then everybody's gonna win, because they're gonna get discounted consulting services, right, the prospect, and you're basically upselling more consulting services this person asked for, but you're not gonna give it to them for free, you're gonna give it for a price. So now it's a give and take, right? They want consulting, you give them a price at a discount, and then you can anchor that price higher and then give them a discount so that it makes sense for your business to actually do and remain profitable. So remember this, give and take. If somebody asks for something, they gotta pay the price in return. Now the next close I have is called the assumptive close. This is essentially a strategy where you're already assuming the prospect is going to move forward with the deal and that they're gonna buy. Again, it's probably more effective when it comes to transactional deals where there's not a lot of buyer remorse, And by making the purchasing decision, they're not gonna think like, oh my God, I've made a big mistake and this and that. It's more of those things that are easy to sell, and it's just like, selling like an expensive camera, for example, a refrigerator, or maybe a car, something that people already need, they're gonna buy, but you just wanna make sure they buy from you. So towards the end of the meeting, how would you use the assumptive close is you can say something like, okay, well, when would you like to get started, right? It's already implying that you are gonna get started, right? Like they already agreed to it, which they may have not, but if they kind of just say, oh, I wanna get started on Wednesday, then you say, okay, well, we gotta actually get this contract signed first before we get started to make sure when you receive, our deposit or our payment, and then we can go ahead and get started on the day you wanted. Right? Or you can say something like, if you're ready to go ahead and get started, I'm actually available to get started on this consulting service with you, next week, 10 a.m. Does that work for you? And they might say, yeah, that totally works. Well, do we need to sign any contracts before we get going, right? And so I'm assuming they're already gonna move forward. I put a day on, and then they're gonna just go along with it if that's something that they wanna do. Now, for some people, they might feel like maybe a little too pushy, where they're like, wait a minute, I didn't agree to this yet. Don't assume that I'm gonna buy it, right? And so for those type of buyers, you kind of have to feel it out during the sales meeting. If you're kind of skeptical, if you're not really for sure they're gonna close or not, probably don't use assumptive close. But if it's like you kind of know and you kind of feel it and they're invested in you emotionally, then you can go for the assumptive close, right? Again, you gotta use these closes depending on the situation you're in. And the next close I have for you is called the summary close. And that's gonna be when you're essentially summarizing everything that you talked about in the meeting, and then you wanna combine that with another close to actually close it out. So you summarize the meeting, or the sales meeting, and why someone should buy, and then you use another close on top of it. So it's like a combo, right? 1-2 punch. So here's an example of how that would work. So to summarize everything we talked about so far, it seems like you're having trouble doing XYZ and you want to get to this situation, and it seems like our product and service is a really good fit for you to solve some of your challenges. Now, based on everything we talked about so far, and you're gonna go ahead and go with Plan A yearly upfront fee, so you can get that 20% discount, and you feel very confident about that because you can see yourself using this software for many years to come. Now, with all that said, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? So here, what am I doing here? I'm summarizing this situation. Obviously, I'm just like replacing, the actual conversation with like XYZ and stuff like that, just to, make it quicker. But you just want to use your specific sale in there. So I'm summarizing the situation, talking about the problem, talking about where they want to go, talking about how my product solves a problem. And then I kind of talk about the plan of what they're agreeing to buy, like a yearly contract, what discount, really quick. So after the summary, I'm gonna put in the question close, right? And I'm gonna say, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward, right? And this one's really powerful because I summarized everything. I made sure I understand everything that we need to cover when it comes to the terms of the deal. And then I asked them, is there anything else you need to see before moving forward? So they're reminded of what the deal is, they understand, they were on the same page, very clear, concise. And then if there's anything else they need to see, they're gonna talk about it right there. If there's nothing else they need to see, then we can go ahead and get to the close. And then they would ask me, okay, so how do we get started? Like, do you send me a contract, or what's the deal? So that's how you use the summary close. It's a combination of summary plus another close. You can use another close like, don't think you only have to use the question close. You can combine it with the assumptive close or the scarcity close, whatever fits your style best. So when you are deciding which close to use, my recommendation for you is to pick maybe one or two to really master, and basically just use those same two over and over depending on the situation, right? Because you don't need to learn 10 different type of closes to close a deal. You only really need to learn one. And if you get that one right, your odds of closing is a lot higher. You'd rather get good at closing in one way than learning 10 different ways. But if just in case that one close may not work in a certain situation, you might want to have at least two. So I would recommend at least two that you really feel comfortable with. Like no matter who you talk to, you can use one of the two depending on the situation, so that you increase your chances of closing a deal. And so with that said, those are going to be some closes that you can use to start selling more. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and if you want to take your sales game to the next level, I got a free training on how to sell anything to anyone, and it's gonna be perfect for anyone who is starting their sales career or looking to accelerate their sales career. Check out the link in the description to check out the training, and I'll see you guys in the next one.